just give a quick disclaimer as usual. You've all seen this before, I'm sure. So I'm going to go through a few things with EdgeRater software, and we're going to look at a few stocks and a few backtesting scans. And I'm not going to be recommending any of those stocks, but obviously, if you want to trade, that's up to you. All trading involves risk, and you have to do your own due diligence. So today we're going to go through the software update for May 2015. For May, there's been a update which was pushed out this morning. I've been up since the early hours trying to get this ready, and I wanted to have it ready for everybody on the webinar, and then it would just make more sense when I'm talking about it that you can actually follow along with your own software and see what's going on. So that is within the last hour has been released, and so we're going to talk about the new features that are in May, and we'll also talk about some of the backtesting features to give everybody a foundation in the fundamentals of the backtesting part of EdgeRater, and that will become quite important as we go on in the coming months. I have some exciting things planned in terms of backtesting with the software and automated backtesting, and I'll show you a little preview if we get time a bit later of what I'm actually working on for June. And I think that is just I'll show you, and we'll see what you think. But there's a lot of good information coming out in that time frame. So again, I sort of will highlight this as a shared folder location, just because I think a lot of people didn't really copy this down before. But if you go to this location, you'll find sort of extra files that aren't necessarily published with the program, so they're not downloaded with the program, but there are certain things that I run every day, and I push them up to this location here. This is a Microsoft OneDrive location, and you'll find if you go there, you'll be able to get a web page which looks like this, and you'll be able to see the root of that location. You'll see symbol lists if you want to get extra symbol lists. There's a bunch of lists in there, and I'll keep updating those. You'll also find this is something for those of you who are familiar with HDSI and Ron Brown, the Top 50 Group Inclusion Report, which is something that Ron and I produce every day. And I've actually put the files that I produce in there into this folder, so that could be useful to you if you are not producing that every day. I've done it. Also, the Warehouse Archive is a very useful resource. This contains actually all of the HDSI warehouse views from since October last year for every single day. This will become more important as we go on as well, because we'll be able to do some testing on more criteria than just the technical criteria, but there's lots of fundamental information in there too. And actually, this will be interesting after today, and we go through some of the features that have just been introduced with the latest release. You can grab one of these files and use it in the software, and I'll show you how to do that. And the reason you might want to do that is if you want to put industry group information into some of your template reports. So let's just go ahead and get started. And I should say also that in the week I did sent an email, so you should have received an email from me about a survey, and I'm doing a survey of all licensed EdgeRater users to find out what you think of the software, what templates you like to use, what you think needs improvement in the software, and the features that you like about the software. And the purpose of that is really to get a feel for what people are doing and improve the software, and also give me some direction as to go with future templates. So please, if you've seen that email from me, I have had some good responses so far, and thank you if you have responded. But if you haven't responded, please go ahead and click on the link, and it is actually quite it will take 10 minutes to complete, and it will really help out with, it will help you as well, because obviously your voice will be heard, and some of the templates that are coming up and features that are coming up can be based on that information. So please go ahead and complete that survey. And again, thank you if you have. I know it's you know, I very appreciate it very much. Okay, so what is new for May? And probably you haven't seen this unless you have, oh, that was a little preview, unless you have installed the software or run the software within the last couple of hours. As I said before, this has just come live, and what you are going to want to see is you have the trading template set version 2015.5.1, and 0.1 has just I realized there was a little error in the 0.5, so I had to do a 0.1 release just in the last half an hour. So so make sure you have 2015.5.1. What is new in this? It changes things a little bit to what you're used to, and so I wanted to go through that and make sure everybody is familiar with the way things are processing. I think it actually makes things a lot clearer as well. So the first thing that you'll notice is actually not the first thing on this list, but the first thing you'll notice is item down here. Reports are now separated from templates. So what does that mean? Well, when you're in this view, you're looking at templates. Okay. As you know, you can select templates from over on the right hand side. You've got categories, and then you've got templates that you can select within those categories, and it shows a template in this area here. Now what used to happen is you could run a template, and the results of that template would be shown in this exact same area. And it sort of muddles the idea of a template and a report that's produced from a template. And if you navigated away from that report and then came back to it, it wasn't exactly in the same way you left it, because you may have done sorting and filtering and all that sort of thing. And that information wasn't saved because they weren't treated as individual documents. So the major thing you're going to notice in this update is now when you run a template, okay, so we'll select the template and we'll just run, say, the in play last 10 days. The very first thing you'll notice is after it's finished running, the report that's produced from this template will now be shown in a separate window. Okay, so you still see the template in the first window, but there's another window has popped up containing the report. Now this window is completely clean, so it doesn't have the symbol list on the left hand side, it doesn't have a list of templates on the right hand side. It's the report, it's essentially a view of the Excel file that's produced when you run a template. And now, for example, if I ran the template again, and perhaps I changed the parameter to be 5 days, now let's run this again. I'm running this on, looks like 2800 stock, so it's taking a couple of seconds to run. And now what you'll see is the new report has popped up. So I still have the old report, okay, which was the 10 days. Now I have the 5-day report. So, and I can put these side by side, I can do comparisons. This will become actually the reason, not the reason, but a benefit of doing this is one of the new, another one of the new features, the copy column and insert copy column. And we'll talk about that in a sec too. But you can just close these windows down if you don't want to see the actual report. They're saved, as you probably know, in the documents folder under reports. So they're there. You don't have to save them; they're automatically saved. But you can just close them down if you don't want to view them. So it unclutters the menu area quite significantly. So now with templates, there's actually not that much you need to do. You need to be able to obviously get your latest templates. You need to be able to run a template and set a historical date for doing the run, so you can see historical scans. And then you can also see your click on your video help or your template info to go to help about those templates. So simplifies things quite a bit. You also notice that there's now this formula bar area in here. So a template another reason for sort of doing this separation is to try and make it easier for people to create their own templates. So in that regard, if you wanted to create, let's choose a linear regression template. Okay, the linear regression template, as you know, probably know, has a bunch of different columns with different time frames. Okay, 5 days, 10 days, 21 days, etc. Now, some people like to look at linear regressions using their own scale. So maybe you wanted a 7, for instance, an example, a 7-day linear regression instead of a 5-day linear regression line. So the way to do that would be to create your own template. And I talked about that in the past, to go to Excel, open up the template, save it into the right location, and then it becomes your own template in your My Templates folder. But now there's an easier way to do that. And the way that you would do that is you can click on, load the template like it's loaded here. This is an editable template, so I can click on where it says here in gray, and we're looking at the annualized slope 5 period. I could change that to be up here, a 7-period regression, and then this text down here I would probably need to change to a 7 to let me know that I'm looking for 7-period regression information. And then I would do save as. Save as automatically loads it up into the right area, so the Edge Club folder, and I'll save this as my linear regression. Click on save, and then under My Templates, the linear regression is listed down here, and when I select it down here, you see that it's got the 7 already selected in here. And let me choose just so we can be quicker, I'll choose a shorter list to run this on. And after it's finished running, you'll see that you have pops out the report, and now you have a column for 7 days instead of 5 days. So that's, it's a very quick way of starting to create your own template, and lots of things you can do in there. So now I've got linear regression under the My Templates, so this is something that I'm able to modify, or if you did it yourself, that you would be able to modify, and you're not going to modify the system template, which would be a good thing. Although if you ever modified the system template, you can always get back the original system template by clicking on Get Latest Templates. So the other thing is that now these templates are actually somewhat editable within this view. So if you wanted to, say, for instance, take away, so I'm right clicking on the column headers here. I've selected these columns. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say delete column. Now, as you know, if you use Excel, that merged cells can get in the way of doing editing. So what I like to do in Excel often when I'm doing any edits is select a whole bunch of cells, maybe all the way down to here, and then I could right click, and in here I want to say for these cells that I don't want to have them as merged cells. So I'll click on unmerge. Now these cells are not merged, and then now I can go ahead and right click and delete columns, and I can potentially delete all these columns and really filter this down to something that I'm focused on, and I can add my own columns in here, and it just becomes a much easier way for you to create your own templates without having to go to Excel to do it. Although you can still go to Excel if you want, and Excel is actually has more features and functionality, and for people familiar with Excel, it's a little bit easier to use. So but anyway, we will be building on this as we go on in the development. So separating out templates and reports is an important thing. So that is number 1 of the features that I wanted to mention. And let's go back to see what else is new. So reports separated from templates, the formula bar has been added, templates can be saved and modified, talked about that. Copy column and insert column. This is a major major benefit. this is really the focus of this release for May. So a lot of times you will run a template, for instance in play, something I like to run very frequently. So I'm just going to run that. I think I've got, let me see what list I've got selected here. I've got the weekly options list. I'm going to run that. Okay. Now it's going to pop out this report produced from that run. Now it may not have all of the information in there that I would like to see. For instance, I might like to see seasonality. So what I would do is I'd go down to my annual trends template. So I'll look at seasonality. Select the template I want for seasonality now, run that template on the same list. Okay, when that's done, it's going to pop out the seasonality report, and let me just put that on that side. So now what you see I've got is two reports. I've got an in-play report and I've got a seasonality report. Now you might want to, as you're looking through your in-play, you might want to superimpose seasonality numbers on top of the in-play numbers. Would make sense. If you're looking at stocks to trade, you want to verify that they have good seasonality. So if you were interested in the 2-week seasonality, let's take, from now for the last 10 years, over the next 2 weeks, the stock has done very well. What I can do is I can highlight these columns, D, E, and F, 2-week seasonality. I can click on copy column, and then I can come over to my in-play template, click on column F and say insert copied column. Alright, now that has copied the information from the historical performance, so the seasonality template, into the in-play template. But it's not, you might think, oh, that's just something you could do in Excel. However, bear in mind that these two reports are sorted in completely different ways. So, for instance, the first thing you will see in the historical performance seasonality template on row 6 is Alliance Data Systems with a 5% average, a 10 and 0. Okay. Now, if you copied that directly into the in-play template, you would get 5%, 10 and 0 in column row 6, which actually there's no symbol in row 6, but if you put it in row 7, so it would match up with the wrong symbol. So this feature matches it up with the correct symbol. So if we go down to from ADS here with 5%, 10 and 0, and we go down to the results of the in-play template and we find ADS, let's see where that is. You'll note that 5%, 10, and 0 have been put into the right place. So it's done essentially by doing that copy and paste. It has done the correct lookup. In Excel, you would call that, if you wanted to kind of do that with a formula in Excel, it would be called a VLOOKUP formula. But it's done that for you. It's also done all of the formatting. You'll also notice that all formatting that was applied in these columns has been copied over into these new columns too. Now it hasn't copied, it's copied the header, so average up and down, but it hasn't copied anything else. So basically the copy and paste copies the data, and it copies the header row, but it doesn't copy anything else. So if you wanted to, so in this particular case there is extra information like the 2-week column here. You would actually just have to come into this report and click on allow editing, that's a new feature, and right click range explorer. In this case I'll merge the cells together, and then I'll just say well, let's just copy it from here over to here, 2-week, and that's done. The other thing is that it's not copying formulas, so so if there was a formula in the cells over here, and I think as I scroll over we see there are no formulas in here, these are directly calculated values, but if there were formulas in one of the templates reports and you copied it into the new report, it's not going to copy the formula. The formula could be relying on other cells in that same source template, which would be no good. It actually just copies the value. So whatever value is calculated from the formula is copied over into the new template. It then becomes its own independently existing cell in the new template and doesn't have any link back to the old template. So it's actually much more versatile than copying formulas, which can get a little bit nasty. And obviously now, once you've got the new columns in your template, you can sort however you like. You can do sorting, you can do filtering, all based on now any of the columns that are in the new template. So this feature is extremely powerful, and it allows you to combine the results of any of the other templates into any template that you like. So let's take this one step further. All right. If you have information that doesn't necessarily have to have been technical information, but you could have fundamental information. You could have even, say, a good example would be industry groups. If you had an association, if you had somewhere an Excel file which associated your symbol with an industry group, you can do this exact same copy. I'm going to show you that. And the reason that I mentioned before this location, it will all become very clear right now, is in that shared drive there's various Excel files which contain all sorts of information, and this information can now be copied into any of your reports just by doing that copy paste feature. So let me show you an example. I'm going to close down the seasonality template. I'm going to keep open the in play template. So you might be looking at in play and you go, I'm sorted by the stocks that have had the biggest moves, the biggest lowest low to highest high percentages over the last 10 days. And you might be interested in knowing what industry groups these stocks are in. Okay, it's a very common thing to ask. So if you click on the open report and you copy that file to a particular location, the file I just showed you that you can download from that website. You copy it to somewhere on your hard drive, and then you come back into open report over here and you find that file. I'm going to sort mine, so just so I get the latest one. Okay, it's going to open up that file into a separate window. All right, I'm going to put it over here. Now this file is a list of all the securities. So if we scroll right down to the bottom of this file, we've got 8,240 in here. My report, remember I'm using this on a much shorter list, so my report only has 397, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just going to match up any matching symbols. So you'll note in this file there's all sorts of good information like industry, major industry, sector, SIC code, all kinds of other information in there, but I'm just interested right now in industry. So I can click on the GE column. Okay, I'll say copy column, and I'll come over to the in-play area and I'll say insert copied column. All right, now it's copied over industry, matching up obviously the symbols to the right line. And now, so I've built essentially a new report which has now got industry group, it's got seasonality aspects to it, and it's also got the output from the in-play template. So some of the stocks in the lists don't have an industry group in the file that I used. That's fine, but the ones that do have been matched up properly. I can sort by industry group and I can see all of the stocks that are in a particular industry group. And now of course I can also do filtering by industry group as well by clicking on the little filter drop down. So those files will become very useful for people, and also when we start to get into backtesting, not today we're going to use those files, but that's just if you know where they are, and if you can produce those files yourself. Obviously with HGSI, every day you do your update in HGSI, save your warehouse file, and you will have that information too. Although I am saving it, so you don't necessarily need to. But maybe I'm going to miss a day or two, and that way you don't have to rely on me doing it. Okay, so I think that I'm very excited about those capabilities now. Let me bring up. Oh, that's another. another time you've seen that. It's my super secret thing. All right, now let's go back to see what else is new this month, May. All right, so we've got copy column, insert column, saving, modifying templates, charting improvements. Well, yeah, there are some improvements to charting inside the trade simulation, and now we're going to get into before I go into backtesting, I just want to say the other two changes are in the George Lee squeeze layout. It's just a change in the charting, so that the volume has been moved into a lower area that used to kind of impinge in the main area, overlapped. It wasn't so easy to see, so that's been changed. And also in the George Lee signals, candle patterns, the power bar signals are now also taking into account the 50 period moving average. And that was one of the criteria for power bars originally, from Stephanie Young, who came up with the power bar idea, was that you had to have the bar with the right criteria in terms of its range, but it also had to be above or below the 50 period moving average in its entirety in order for it to make an up or a down power bar. And so now the candle patterns template has been modified for that criteria. So those are those things. Group history for HDSI folks. The group history analysis, if you've done top 50 GIR reports, you now have an option of specifying how many stocks you want to take from that top 50 GIR. Maybe you only want to see the top 5 stocks. They are the stocks that have appeared every day the most in the top 50 GIR. But so it's just another parameter that's been added to the group history analysis. So something else to look at. So we're going to get into the backtesting aspect now, and I'm going to go through. This may be basic for some people, but it's good to review what's going on. And it's exciting for me because the backtesting side of EdgeRater is actually where it all started. In fact, originally, back in the day, 2008, in the first release of the program, the only tabs we had in the system were charting tab, an entries and exits tab, and trade simulation. This whole templates tab is something that's been added in recent years. Oh. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go and take a look at some of the backtesting. So backtesting in EdgeRater is done a little bit differently to the way you may have seen it in other programs, and it's really designed for the visually minded. If you are visually inclined and you like to see at each step of the process in which you're working on a backtest, you like to see charts, you like to verify things, then this is the way the program has been designed. It's also been designed to run very, very quickly. Now, so to give you an idea of how this works, we'll use a simple list over here. I'm using my list of stocks that have weekly options. There's around 400 of those. I actually have them updated. I'll show you how much data I have with this. I think it's only oh no, I have 10 years of data in this list. Let me choose one that doesn't have as much data, just because with a smaller amount of data, it's going to run quicker. And seeing as we're online here, I don't want to make it run too long. So let me choose my weekly options from CBOE. What does that have? That has 2 years worth of data. Okay, so that's 400 symbols as well, 2 years worth of data. I said it's designed to run fast, so it will actually process all that information very quickly. But as soon as we're online, let's just make it even quicker. So the idea with backtesting here is you can drop system scans into the security selector area, and you can also drop ranking selectors into the. So there are two kinds of selector: a security selector and a ranking selector. Normally, I would say for now, let's not even bother thinking about rank selectors. We'll just focus on security selectors. Security selector really is just detecting events that occur in stocks. So an example I kind of always use, maybe because it's always at the top of the scanning list here because it begins with A, is cross above the upper Bollinger Band, AUBB. It's a scan, and it just basically detects technical criteria of when price crosses above the upper Bollinger Band. Now I can drag that over here and drop it in, or actually another way of doing it is just double click on it and it will put it in here too. And then you get to choose the parameters for this particular scan. And the parameters are the Bollinger Band period, which is 20, the standard for Bollinger Bands. You can change that, obviously, if you wanted to try out different Bollinger Band periods. And the standard deviations, which are set to 2. That's the standard. Bollinger Bands 22. All right, so if I hit run now, you'll note that reasonably quickly we went through 2 years worth of data for each one of these 400 stocks, and we produced a column of information for every single day that was traded in those 2 years. We scroll right over to the right hand side, we can see the very first day was 6/14/2013. Maybe there are some days missing because there weren't any stocks that crossed above the upper Bollinger Bands on that day. That's fine, we're not concerned about that, but we're just trying to get a list, and I call this an event grid. Okay, so this is a list of it's a matrix really, but I call it an event grid of all the dates and all the stocks. It's been configured so that if you hover over any of the symbols, if there are any matching symbols at anywhere else in the grid, they will also highlight. So for instance here, 1031, he was at 2013, DDD made it into the list. So obviously crossed above the upper Bollinger Band here, and you can also see highlighted on 11/14, it also crossed above the upper Bollinger Band here. So without even looking at the chart, and I can shrink this right down, I can just sort of scroll around here and see when those signals were occurring in the various stocks and how frequently they occurred. Okay, so another thing that you can do when you've produced this grid is you probably want to verify that it's picking out the correct types of signals. You want to make sure that every one of these is a stock that's crossing above the upper Bollinger Band. So as in most places in EdgeRater, you double click on the and it's come up in a different window. Let me just put that over the side here, close that down. Okay, so now I am looking at Bollinger Bands. I'm looking at Bollinger Bands in both the weekly and the daily, but this particular scan is looking at daily crosses above the upper band. And so I've clicked on BMY, Bristol Myers Squibb, for 10/28/2013. Okay, and it's pointing out, if you look at the right hand side of the chart, 10/28/2013 was the day that BMY crossed above the upper Bollinger Band. So that verified immediately that this scan seems to be picking out the right types of thing. And as I put my cursor into any cell in this event grid, and I then scroll around, the fastest way to do that, by the way, is to use your arrow keys on the keyboard. Every one of these charts will now be that particular criteria. Okay, so it's a very, very, very quick way of scanning through thousands of stocks. So this is kind of the idea of, like, if you're visually inclined, this is fantastic, because not only can you're not only verifying that those criteria are met, but you can now potentially just visually go through and see what happened after that period by using the scroll bar down here, or putting your chart into replay mode and just playing forward each day. So that's a way of sort of doing backtesting manually. And if you did that for hundreds of stocks or thousands of stocks, you'd get a very good idea of how stocks react after they hit such a criteria. Maybe there's an edge there, maybe there's not, and that's something you can find out. That's something the system will tell you. It's one of the goals of the system. Okay. So having got your event grid and verified that it's picking out the right kinds of stocks, what you can do is use that list, the event grid, as input to a trade simulation. And that means whenever any of these stocks fire a signal, you want to take a trade. It's going to be your entry signal. So you go to the Trade Simulation tab, and in Trade Simulation you can then specify that you're going to be making a trade, and you can choose the side of the trade, long or short. I'm not even going to try and suggest what you might, in this particular set of signals, which are crosses above the upper Bollinger Band. You may all have your own idea about how stocks perform in that situation, and how you want to, run tests. But let me say, as an example here, that I'm going to go long whenever there's a cross above the upper band, and I'm going to go long on the close of the bar that it crossed above the upper band. And then for my exit, I could use an exit event, which basically would mean I go back to the entries and exits tab, go to the exits, and then create a whole set of exit signals. But rather than do that for this, I'm just going to set a fixed hold period. So, and this is a way that you might be able to test if there's any edge in a particular entry signal. And you can test hold periods from however many days. If you want 1 day, you can test from the close of the bar that it crossed above the upper Bollinger Band to maybe the following close. Let's do that. That will be an interesting test. So we're going to go long on the close of the day that it crosses above the upper band, hold for 1 day, and exit on the close 1 day later. Now, the backtesting side of it does allow you to put stops in, and you can play around with this after you've done your basic test. But I'd recommend doing that after you've watched this webinar. Go ahead and do that on your own. You can set up portfolio rules, so you can say things like, do you want to limit the number of open positions? Now, if you are just trying to get a feel for what happens to certain stocks when they hit certain criteria without regard for anything else, then I recommend not putting any stops in and not putting any restrictions on trading. Don't even worry about using only available equity, which means that the account can actually go negative, which is fine because we're actually just trying to see if there's statistical significance in that particular event, all right, that particular signal. So I'd leave all that as at the default values, and then all you do is you hit the run, and so EdgeRater will go through that, take all of those entry signals, generate trades for them, see what the open price was or the close price was, see what the close price was the next day, and generate these simulated trades. Always good to verify the trades, make sure the trades are as you have specified in your criteria. So, and again, this is sort of a visual thing. If you're visually inclined, this is a great tool, because you can then click on. Now let's narrow this down. That's actually let's go further down the list. Okay, there's not a whole bunch of information for some of these stocks. That's fine. So let's just take a look at. Let's go down further in the list. Okay, so we're not quite so close to the beginning of the data. We've only got 2 years worth of data for these stocks. So let's take a look at FAZ. Okay, that was 10/8/2013 open, and the trade was closed on 10/9/2013 so it was opened at 31.23. It was closed at 30.99. 320 shares traded, because I believe that the system by default is set up to trade $1,000 per. Would that make sense? Maybe $10,000 per trade. Okay. And what you can do is we can take the chart out of replay mode, which means we're going to see a lot more data here. If you want to see the trade annotated on the chart, click on the little show annotations button, and then what you'll find is it's actually going to point out where the entry was and where the exit was. And what you'll be able to do then is scroll up and down through the list, and it will just highlight the trade entries and exits. The charting is configured so that once you've put the entry and the exits at some point in your view area, so I might want to have it sort of further towards the left. Whenever you click on the next one, it's always going to try and maintain that point of interest. So yeah, so in a trade, the point of interest is the entry. Actually, the entry is the main point of interest, so it's going to try and maintain the entry at the same distance from the right-hand side of the chart. That's cool if you maybe want to put it over to the very right-hand side of the chart, and you then want to just do your manual kind of testing of what happened next. It will always maintain that same position. So this is given a list that you can again quickly scroll through, and you can scroll through hundreds, even thousands of charts and see how these trades worked out. There's other information in this trade list too. So the other information that's of use is the actual profit and loss percents. If it's green, it's a winning trade. If it's red, it's a losing trade. Tell you how much percentage. And then there's the profit and loss column per trade, which gives you the dollar amount. And then the other interesting columns, you don't see this a lot in other systems, is on each individual trade basis. It's going to tell you the maximum favorable excursion and the maximum adverse excursion, which basically means, did the stock move in your direction, and how far did it move in your direction before it closed? So that would be a favorable excursion. Say you bought the stock at the simulation picked the stock out at $10. That was your opening price. Closed at $11. You've got a 10% gain, but maybe it went up to 12 before it closed, and so the MFE percent in that case would be 20%. So it's always good to know, if you were in a drawdown situation in an individual trade, or if it went higher than where it actually ended up exiting. Good to know. And then MFE and MAE in terms of dollars are also listed in here, and the exit reason is listed too. So you might ask, why is the exit reason listed? Because we know these trades were all exited for because we specified a hold period. That comes more into play when you're dealing with stops. Okay, so the exit reason may be stop was hit. And the other, if you've instead of using a hold period for your exit, you may have used an exit signal, and so then the exit reason would be exit event was hit. So all kinds of different reasons for exiting. You could do something like come in here and you could sort this list in terms of the highest P&L, and then take a look at the charts. It's interesting to see, these trades. Obviously, a one day profit of 83%. When it crossed above the upper Bollinger Band, which a lot of people say above the upper Bollinger Band is a point of extreme overbought, and so you might be looking for a reversion to the mean. But obviously here, look what happened. You had an up cross above the upper Bollinger Band. The next day it opened even higher with a gap, and then closed even higher than that. So obviously that's your best trade. So it's actually an interesting thing to just go down and look through to see where the trades cross over from being positive to negative at line 3318, and then you can look down to the bottom of the list. You see there's 6,413 in total. All right, all that information is summarized for you actually in the trade summary. You see there were 6,412 trades, 3,251 winners, 3,095 losers. So 50% winners, 48% losers, and with an average profit of 0.14%. So, you know, I'm not trying to say that there's a system that you could trade and it's gonna make money, but this type of testing, I'm just trying to show you how to do testing on your own signals. Obviously, this is a 1 day hold period, so very short term. Now, once you've got the list, the trade list, you can look at the trade summary. You can also look at your equity chart, daily equity. And when I clicked on that, it's going to show how equity changed in the whole portfolio over that period of time. And also on the bottom area of the chart will show the number of open positions that were held open on any particular day. So as you can see here, 7/12/2013, there were 87 positions open. And because we're only holding them for 1 day, what it means is that that day there were a lot of stocks that crossed above the out of the 400 stocks, 87 or 80ish crossed above the upper Bollinger Band. So that's some sort of significant day there. There's one here where there's 113, or essentially 25% of the stocks in that list crossed above the upper Bollinger Band on 9/10/2013. So you can go in and you can find out what those dates mean in terms of where the indexes were and that sort of thing. But overall, you can see where the equity moved, how equity moved in that time period. And then, so by looking at this, you would immediately see that from June 2013 through to June 2014, making that trade worked out very well. Okay, if you were trading that as a system from June 2014 to June or May 2015, it did not do so well. Okay, so the equity curve shows you how your equity changed over that period, and it takes into account not just the trades that are closed, but it takes into account open trades as well. So if your whole period was, say, 10 days instead of just 2 days or 1 day, the changes in stock price in the open positions would actually have an effect on this equity curve. So it's taking into account the whole portfolio and essentially saying what would happen if I liquidated everything right now, what equity is in the account. So that's an interesting view. And then the other interesting view is the profit and loss distribution. Now this has been, so it's something that's been updated for this for May. Excuse me, a little bit of water. Something's been updated for May is this chart here, because I found that oftentimes when you run a trade simulation, you get these outliers, 1 or 2 outliers that's sitting on the extremes, and it crunches the chart so that in the middle you just see this sort of small area. What you'd really like to do is pan and zoom it. So that's been enabled with this release. You can also do something like this: click on logarithmic X scale, and so now instead of showing you linear scaling on the x-axis, it's showing you a logarithmic scale. So that's another way of getting that. But you can also do something like, I'm just using my scroll button on my mouse, and so now I can see a much nicer view of the results of this system. And what does that mean? It means basically there's a blue line you'll see in the middle, and so anything to the right hand side of this blue line was a trade that was a winning trade. So the first green bar you see there were 1,784 stocks that made between 0 and 1%. And there were 1,642 trades that made between 0 and -1%. So when you take a look at this over that time period for the stocks that we ran, you can see that there is a slight favorable edge for trading that system long. You may be surprised about that, and it's not something I didn't really pre-plan this. I'm just running this as an example. So a slight edge. Whether you could make money off it or not is hard to say, because you've got to factor in commissions and all that sort of thing, and obviously you're not going to trade hundreds of stocks a day. but it's just trying to show you an edge if there's an edge in a particular trading signal. And I find this is very useful because a lot of time I go to a lot of different trading events, and if you've ever been to Traders Expo in Las Vegas, there's a lot of people trying to sell you different trading systems, and you go to some of those free seminars there and you sit down for an hour and somebody will tell you, swear to you that all you got to do is find something where the 20 period moving average crosses above the 50 period moving average, and trade that, and it's exit in the opposite direction, and it's a fantastic system. Well, I have input many of those types of systems into the software, and I can, it's very, very interesting to see if the wool is being pulled over your eyes. And there's always an ulterior motive for people who are telling you things like that. So, it's very good to know. But there are some systems that are worth investigating, and I think this is a really very quick and neat way of investigating those things. So the other thing on this view, which is interesting, is the lower area. And the lower area is each one of these bars on this chart is a trade. Okay, if it's a green bar, it was a trade that worked out well. If it's a red bar, it's a trade that lost money. And then the wicks that are on these bars are the favorable excursions and the adverse excursions. So just by looking through this, scrolling through this chart down here, you can see where those wicks are. If the trade went much against you before it closed, or if it went way in your favor and then closed against you, you can see that on here. And again, as a theme with EdgeRater, if you double click on any of these bars, it will actually pick out on a chart, and this is where the whole idea of, if you're visually minded, this is very handy, because you can then instantly see what that trade was. So let's find a trade that has a big wick on the downside, this one down here. Click on that. Why does it have a big wick on the downside? Because, let's zoom in a little bit on the bar. Has a big wick because you entered here. The next bar has a big wick. Okay, went against you before you closed at the close of that day. All right, so it's just another way of getting to see the information on a chart. Click on this one over here, big green bar. So that's always a good thing. Okay, you entered here, stock gapped up a little bit and closed at the high of the day. So good trade. So always good to be able to quickly take a look at those things. Now we have 5 minutes left, and what I wanted to show quickly is give a little. I'm going to answer a couple of questions in a sec. I'll take a look in a minute. Give a little preview of what to expect in June. This is something I'm really excited about. So first of all, any questions? Let me take a look through the list. If you have a question, please type it in. Is it understandable? Did you give me a why if you understood what I was saying, and if you think it's useful. Give me a why if you trying around. Good. Yeah, good, John. Good to see you on here too. Thanks, Dan. Great. Malcolm, great. Good to see you here. John. Awesome. Okay, yeah. So I think it does. Yeah, it makes logical sense, and I think visually, and so because of that, I kind of assume that most other people do. I know not everybody is a visual thinker, but I think that the majority of traders are. Okay. So Dan, can industry groups be found in Yahoo? Is your question. Hey, thanks, Mark. Can industry groups be found in Yahoo? I haven't ever looked, to be honest, and I think the reason I haven't looked is that I use HGSI for getting my data, and I have had no reason to go to Yahoo. I'm sure they can. If they can't be found in Yahoo, you can find them elsewhere on the internet. And if you can find them and you can download them and create a Excel file from them, then you can obviously use them in the parts of the program that I just showed you before we went into trade simulation. If you also bear in mind, I showed you a folder location that I'm saving all that information to. So you can take one of my historical files that I've generated and use that to get your industry group information. Yeah, John Wild, FinViz probably has them too. FinViz also used to have a lot of other things that were free, and they've started sort of charging in the pro version. They've kind of restricted some of the things to the pro version, so just be a little bit. It's not necessarily going to be free there, but I'm sure they have it, and it might be free. All right, so we have 3 minutes, and what I want to do is give you a quick preview of something for June. We've talked about May. I hope everybody's happy with the changes for May. And now I'm going to show you something from my development machine that I think you will like. Let me have a look. See if I can find it. Here we go. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Price Predictor. Everyone likes to predict prices. Well, this template is something that will try and predict prices for you. And having known about, or having just found out, if this is your first time through, about how the backtesting side of EdgeRater works, explaining this is actually going to be quite straightforward. So what happens is you may go in to look at crosses above the upper Bollinger Band, as I just did, and I ran that scan for 1 day, okay, for my list of stocks. But you may then want to go and run it for 2 days and see if there's any edge over a 2-day period or a 3-day period, 4-day period, 1 month after that event occurs. So you have to go back in and you keep running those scans, and it's fine, you can do it. But one of the powers of obviously having templates is that templates can automate things a lot. And so this price predictor essentially will take any script that has an event inside it, okay, so for instance cross above the upper Bollinger Band, or anything, or any of your own scripts, and it will run thousands and thousands of iterations, just depending on the parameters you put in here. I'm going to say here I'm going to run this from 2 days to 10 days, and I'm going to report every 1 day. On my short list over here, you'll find out why I'm only doing it on this short list of 13 stocks, because if you put this up on 1,000 stocks and you ran 10 iterations, you're going to be looking at 10,000 individual trade simulations, not just trades that appear in a trade list, but 10,000 trade lists. Okay, so a lot of processing, and you can do that. And it still works pretty quickly, but for the sake of time, let's just press this button right now and see what happens. Alright, now check out the bottom here. We're processing basically 9 bars for 13 stocks, and it's coming up with a prediction for me. And basically what this is saying is, so each one of these stocks is listed, and then it's giving me an average, essentially. The first one for 2 bars, the second column for 3 bars, the third column for 4 bars, and so on. So it's basically running those trade simulations and taking the result from the summary spreadsheet, and it's taking the average percentage gain and putting it in the different columns into this essentially price prediction report. And yeah, so then you can see, breaking it down on an individual stock basis, how those particular events affect those stocks. And you'll find that different events have different effect on different stocks. Very interesting to know. Now, what you'll actually be able to do, I haven't got this working in here, but is each one of these cells in this report is a result of running one simulation, and each simulation produces its own file with all of that great information in that I showed you before. For instance, each simulation has a trade list. You can click on the trades in the trade list and see the information on a chart. So what you'll be able to do in June, there'll be another option up here in the menu to open the linked document. It will open up the trade list, and you'll be able to scroll through the trade lists and see and the summary and see exactly the information that was calculated for that simulation. So this is a really interesting template, and I have had quite a lot of interest actually in just personally running this over the time I've been developing it. And you know, as I said before, some of the simulations take a long time to run. So I've had lists with 2,000 stocks in, and I've wanted to get 22 columns per stock. So or even more than that. I've actually had it do a 50,000 simulation run. It might take a couple of hours to come up with the answer, but at the end of the day, it will come up with, you can leave that running and it will come up with your answer and produce for you a nice, very succinct summary of the results. So anyway, that's for June. I don't want to go on too much about it. I will be talking a lot more about that as we go on in the next month. So if you have, I think we're about done. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take any last questions. And if not, I will thank you once again for coming along. I hope you can enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I really hope that you are enjoying using the EdgeRater software. If you haven't taken the survey, as I said before, you will have received an email from me. Please do go ahead and take that survey, and I will be reading every one of those answers, and they will all go into to helping improve the software. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you like the improvements. Okay, guys. Thanks very much. Oh, okay. Yes, Ed. Storage space problem. Well, you know that is an interesting. It's not too bad. There's a lot of files that are created, and I've actually had to come up with a different way of storing the files. So rather than everything being put into the just into the root of the reports folder, what I've done, I'll show you actually very quickly, is let's just take that down. Sorry, I'm looking on my other screen right now. I've got reports. Yeah, I've got something going on like this. So you'll have a root report, which is your sort by date here. Yeah, so it's going to put the root into the main folder, and then it'll create a subfolder underneath to belong to that main folder. So you could have, let's see if I find the one that I just ran, 7. There's 117 individual trade simulations in there. Each file is quite small in itself, only 11 kilobytes. Obviously that would depend on the amount of data you're running for each stock, but it won't get too much bigger than that, because each file is only dealing with one stock. Let me open up one of these, I'll show you what I mean. Came up on the other window. Okay, great. Yeah, so inside that file you'll see the trade list, and you'll also see the trade summary in here too. So yeah, it's not too bad, but obviously there are a lot of files, and the reason for one of the benefits of putting them into a subfolder is that you can quickly delete a run that you're not interested in while still keeping other runs. Yeah, so that's it. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks, John, and thanks everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.